Willa Jensen was standing on her tiptoes in heels that were absolutely not made for tiptoeing, her fingers grazing the edge of a navy wool coat hanging just out of reach on the top shelf. "Need a hand," a deep voice said behind her. She startled, her heels slipping off the edge of the low platform she'd balanced on. Before she could fall, a strong arm slid around her waist, steadying her. She looked up and froze. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored charcoal coat over a crisp white shirt, no tie. His jawline was sharp enough to cut glass, his dark hair slightly tousled like he hadn't meant to look that good. But what caught her attention were his eyes, gray, piercing, amused. Yeah, she managed. The coat. "Top shelf." Without a word, he reached up effortlessly and pulled the coat down, handing it to her like it cost nothing. It probably did. The boutique was the kind of place where they didn't put price tags on the clothes. If you had to ask, you didn't belong. "Thanks," she said, hugging the coat to her chest. "I was debating whether breaking an ankle was worth it." "Definitely not," he said, "but I admire the commitment." She gave a small laugh and nodded. "Well, I'll let you get back to whatever rich people do in places like this." He tilted his head. "How do you know I'm rich? You're in this store, wearing that coat, and you didn't flinch when I reached for something that probably costs more than my rent." His smile widened. "Fair point." Willa gave him a polite smile and turned toward the fitting rooms, coat in hand, heart pounding. Whoever he was way out of her league. She didn't expect to see him again, but she did. 3 blocks from the boutique, she was walking fast, the coat in a garment bag over her shoulder, when a sleek black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down. "Need a ride?" the same deep voice asked. She stopped. "Seriously, you're walking, with 4 shopping bags in heels." "I figured I'd offer." "I'm not getting into some random guy's car," she said, raising an eyebrow. He leaned out the window a bit. "I'm Isaac Zeller, not random, just persistent." Her eyes narrowed. "Zeller, as in Zeller Media Group?" "Yep," she stared. "You're that Isaac Zeller," he nodded. "Guilty?" Isaac Zeller, CEO, Millionaire, media mogul, face of every finance magazine for the last 5 years. She blinked. "Okay, well, that doesn't make it less weird." "Fair, but it does make it safer." She laughed despite herself. "You're really offering a ride?" "I am. And if it makes it less weird, I'll even let you share your location with a friend." He gestured to the phone in her hand. "Or I can just walk with you and help carry your bags." She hesitated, then sighed. "Fine, walk with me, but no funny business," he grinned. "I swear, no funny business. Just decent bag-holding skills." They walked. She told him her name, and he repeated it like it was something worth remembering. "So, Willa Jensen, what do you do when you're not climbing boutique shelves?" She laughed. "I'm an assistant manager at a bookstore, which pays exactly enough for me to splurge on 1 coat a year. That one? It's a nice coat, it better be." He handed her one of the heavier bags. "And do you like it? The bookstore gig? I love it. I mean, it's not glamorous, but it's peaceful. And I get to be around people who love stories." He nodded. "I get that. Stories are everything." She glanced at him. "Is that how you justify your media empire? Storytelling?" He smiled. "Exactly." By the time they reached her building, she was laughing more than she had in weeks. He looked up at the faded awning with rosewood apartments in peeling paint. "This is me," she said. "Nice place," he said, not judging. "I mean, there's a leaky faucet and my upstairs neighbor plays the drums at midnight, but yeah, it's home." He handed her the last bag. "Thanks for letting me walk you." "Thanks for not being a serial killer," he chuckled. "I'm glad I passed the test." She hesitated. "You're not gonna ask for my number," he shrugged. "Didn't want to make you uncomfortable." She smiled. "You already helped me reach a coat and walked 3 blocks with me. I think I can handle you asking for my number." He pulled out a pen old school and scribbled his number on a receipt from his coat pocket, handing it to her. "When you're ready." Then he turned and walked back toward his car. Willa stood there with her heart racing and a coat that suddenly felt a lot warmer than wool. Over the next few days, she kept the receipt in her desk drawer. She didn't call, but she thought about it, and then, on a rainy Thursday, he showed up. She was behind the counter at the bookstore, hair in a bun, no makeup, glasses on, surrounded by stacks of returns. Isaac Zeller walked in like he didn't care that he was getting wet, wearing a black coat, no umbrella, hair dripping slightly. "Hey," he said. She nearly dropped the scanner. What are you doing here? I figured since you weren't calling, I'd come find you. Her eyes widened. You remembered where I worked. I remember everything you said. He looked around. This place is nice. You came all the way here to tell me that. No, he said, stepping closer. I came here because I haven't stopped thinking about you and I'd really like to take you to dinner. She stared at him, stunned. You're serious? Dead serious, she chewed her lip. I don't have anything fancy to wear. I don't care what you wear, she hesitated. Okay. But you're buying, he grinned. Obviously. Later that night, he picked her up in a sleek black car and drove her to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. There were candles, wine, a dress waiting for her in a box in the backseat just in case she changed her mind about what to wear. She didn't want to, but she took the dress anyway. Midnight blue. Elegant, perfect. He watched her all through dinner like she was the only woman in the world. And for the first time in a long time, Willa let herself believe that maybe something unexpected could be exactly what she needed. And Isaac? He didn't know it yet, but the woman who'd needed help reaching a high shelf had just completely rearranged his world. Willa stood at the edge of the rooftop garden, fingers curled around the stem of a delicate glass, the city lights flickering below like 1,000 scattered stars. The air was cool, fragrant with jasmine and something citrusy she couldn't place. She could hear the deep hum of conversation from the dining terrace behind her, but Isaac hadn't returned yet from taking a call, and she needed a moment. She wasn't used to this kind of beauty being handed to her. She wasn't used to being looked at like she mattered. Sorry, Isaac said as he stepped up beside her, slipping his phone into his coat pocket. Board member with a mild panic attack. I promised I'd fix it in the morning. You're a little terrifying, she said, not looking at him. He raised an eyebrow. Terrifying? You just say things like that so casually, like you can wave a hand and make things settle. He leaned on the railing beside her. It's not about waving a hand, it's about knowing which thread to pull. She turned to face him. And what thread are you pulling here? I haven't figured that out yet, he said, watching her carefully. I just know that since I met you, everything else feels a little quiet. She looked away, unsure what to do with that. Careful. Saying things like that can get you in trouble. I'm not afraid of trouble, he said without hesitation. She took a sip from her glass, the taste sharper than she expected. Why me, Isaac? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied her face with a quiet intensity that made her feel like he was memorizing something rare. Because I don't meet many people who don't care who I am, he said. Because you didn't ask for anything. Because you looked at me like I was just a guy in a store, not a headline. Willa's voice was steady. You don't know me. I'd like to, he said. A server approached, informing them their table was ready. They followed her back through the garden and onto a terrace lit with copper lanterns. The table had a view of the skyline, and the plates had gold rims. Willa was certain she shouldn't be here, and yet she was. Halfway through the meal, after discussing nothing and everything books he hadn't read, cities she hadn't visited, he surprised her again. I never told you this, he said, setting down his fork, but my mother used to run a second-hand shop. Clothes, books, old records. I used to sit behind the counter and draw on the back of price tags. Willa blinked. Wait, seriously? He nodded. My father left when I was 6. She worked 6 days a week, and I'd be there after school until she closed. I think it's why I notice things. Like how you kept checking your phone, then shoving it deeper into your bag. She went quiet. He didn't press, just sipped his drink and waited. It's my brother, she said finally. He's trying to get clean. Again, I told him not to call during work hours, but he doesn't listen. He thinks every missed call means I've given up on him. Isaac's voice softened. You haven't. No, she said, her throat tight, but it's hard. I don't have the kind of money to fix things. I can barely keep up with my half of the rent and make sure he eats when he's sober enough to ask for food. He was quiet for a beat. I can help, he said, her eyes snapped to his. Don't. I wasn't offering a handout, just a contact. I know someone who runs a private rehab, small, discreet. No red tape. That's still you fixing something for me, she said, jaw set. It's me making a call. You decide what to do with it. She looked down at her plate, appetite gone. I'm not used to people just giving, he leaned forward. Then it's time you were. The moment stretched between them, the sound of cutlery and soft music filling the silence. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. Later, he walked her to the car, but instead of opening the door, he stopped and looked at her. "I'm not going to pretend this is simple," he said. "I have a life that's loud and full of people who want things from me, but you make me want to be quiet for a while." She stared at him, barely breathing. "I don't want to scare you off," he added. "So if you tell me to slow down, I will." Willa stepped closer, the hem of her coat brushing against his. "I don't want slow, I want honest." "Good," he said, voice low, "because I don't do games." She stepped back just enough for him to open the door, then slid into the seat. He closed it gently, circled the car, and got in beside her. They didn't speak for the first few minutes. The silence wasn't awkward, it was full of things unsaid, things waiting. As they pulled up to her building, she turned to him. "I don't know what this is yet." "You don't have to," he said. "You just have to let it be whatever it's meant to be." She nodded once and got out. At the door, she turned back. He was still watching. Inside her apartment, she stared at her reflection in the hallway mirror. Same face, same life, but something had shifted. Isaac Zeller hadn't just stepped into her world. He'd started rearranging it. Willa pressed her palm to the cool glass of the gallery window, watching the way light spilled across the marble floor inside, catching on a suspended copper sculpture that twisted slowly above a velvet-draped pedestal. "I didn't even know this place existed," she said as Isaac stepped beside her, his hand hovering just behind the small of her back without touching. "It's not open to the public yet," he said. "The artist's a friend. He let me borrow the space for the evening." She turned to face him. "You borrowed an art gallery. He owed me a favor." Willa gave a breath of disbelief and let him open the door for her. Inside, the space was silent and surreal: white walls, high ceilings, and a single long table set for two near the far wall. The table was covered in deep plum linen, the centerpiece a low arrangement of white peonies and black calla lilies. Two violins rested on stands nearby, and in the corner, a chef in all black stood behind a small mobile kitchen, lighting something with a torch. She turned slowly, taking it in. "You did all this for me?" "I wanted to give you something that didn't feel borrowed from someone else's life," Isaac said. "I thought maybe you'd want to be somewhere that didn't ask anything of you." Her eyes lingered on the strings hanging like frozen rain from the sculpture overhead. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "I think so too," he said, but he wasn't looking at the artwork. They sat, and the chef brought the first course, something delicate with edible petals and a sauce poured from a teardrop-shaped glass bottle. Willa picked up her fork, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I don't even know what this is," she said, "but it smells like it belongs in a dream." He laughed quietly. "It's citrus-cured sea base with fennel pollen." "That sounds made up." "It might be." I just nodded when he explained it. She tried it and closed her eyes. "Okay, fine, that's ridiculous." He leaned back, watching her. "Why haven't I met anyone like you before?" She glanced at him. "Because you live in penthouses and fly to Milan for coffee meetings. I haven't done that in years." "That's not reassuring. You're not like the women I usually meet," he said. "I'm not trying to be." "I know," he said. "That's why I like it." She set her fork down and folded her hands on her lap. "Isaac, I need to ask something, and I don't want the polished version." He nodded once. "What do you actually want from me?" His gaze didn't waver. "I want the chance to see what this could become. I'm not here to collect you like some limited edition experience. I don't need you to play a part." She held his eyes, searching for anything rehearsed. "You're careful with your words." "I'm careful with things that matter." Willa looked away, exhaling slowly. "No one's ever taken me to a place like this and said things like that." He tilted his head. "Does it scare you?" "Yes," she said honestly, "because I don't know what happens when this ends, or if it ends. Or if I let myself want it and it disappears." He was quiet for a moment, then reached into his inside pocket and pulled out something small and rectangular. It wasn't a box. It was a folded photograph. He placed it between them. She picked it up. It was an old picture: Isaac, younger, seated behind a counter with a pencil in his hand. A woman stood next to him, smiling despite the exhaustion on her face. The shelves behind them were cluttered with used books and worn coats. "My mother kept this in the back of the register," he said. She said, "Don't forget where you started or you'll lose where you're going." Willa stared at it, then looked up. Why give it to me? Because you remind me of her, not in the way you look. In the way you move through hard things and still manage to care about everyone else. She swallowed hard, the weight of that image pressing into her chest. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. He reached across the table, palm up. Just tell me if I'm wrong. She looked at his hand, then placed hers in it. You're not wrong, but I'm still scared. I'll wait, he said, even if you never stop being scared. They ate the rest of the meal slowly, the conversation drifting to things neither had shared with anyone else. Isaac told her how he hated the silence in hotel rooms, how he sometimes drove for hours just to feel like he was going somewhere. She told him about the way her mother used to braid her hair in little twists and call them warrior ropes before her spelling bees. By the time dessert came, the violins began to play two musicians who'd silently appeared while they talked. The song was soft, unrecognizable, but it settled over her like a warm coat. Dance with me, he said. There's no one else here. Exactly. She stood and he pulled her close, one hand at her waist, the other against her shoulder blade. She moved with him, unsure, but he guided her gently, their steps slow and unhurried. I don't want to lose this, she said, her face near his collar. You won't, he said quietly, but if you ever do, I'll find it and bring it back to you. She didn't answer. She just closed her eyes and let herself believe him. When he took her home that night, he didn't try to kiss her at the door. He touched her cheek, looked at her like she was the answer to something he hadn't meant to ask, and left. Inside, Willa pressed the photo against her chest and sat on the edge of her bed, her thoughts racing far too fast to sleep. She didn't know where this thing with Isaac was going. But for the first time in her life, she wanted to follow something uncertain, and that terrified her more than anything else ever had. The elevator doors opened directly into Isaac's penthouse, but Willa didn't step out right away. She stayed rooted to the polished floor, staring at the soft golden light spilling across the oak panels and slate-gray furniture. The skyline stretched endlessly through the floor-to-ceiling windows, like the world had cracked open just for him. Come in, Isaac said, holding the door with one hand, a bottle of wine tucked under his arm. It's warmer than it looks. She stepped inside, still holding her coat, eyes flicking over the minimalist art on the walls, the fireplace already flickering in the center of the living room. She'd never seen a space so restrained and luxurious at the same time. Everything was deliberate, but nothing felt cold. You live here alone? She asked. He walked to the kitchen and set the wine down. I didn't used to. I had a roommate once, briefly, college friend. He left after 2 weeks. Claimed he couldn't sleep knowing there was a Picasso hanging over the sink. I don't see one now. I moved it. It's in the guest bathroom. She blinked. You're joking. Not even a little. She laughed, then caught herself. Sorry. I don't mean to sound like you're in another universe, he asked, pouring 2 glasses. It's okay. I forget how strange this must look from the outside. She took the glass he offered and sat down on the sofa, the fabric softer than anything she'd ever touched. Her fingers curled against it as she looked over at him. Do you ever get tired of this? She asked. What, the view? No, having everything. He leaned a hip against the back of the couch, swirling his wine. Sometimes I wonder what I'd miss if it all disappeared. But I've never had anyone ask me that without wanting something from the answer. I'm not asking for anything, she said. I know. That's what makes the question feel real. He sat beside her, not too close, but close enough that she could feel the weight of his presence. I've been thinking, she said, about how easy it is to get used to being alone. You work, you eat, you sleep, and eventually you stop noticing the silence. But ever since I met you, everything feels loud again, like things matter in a way they didn't before. Isaac didn't speak at first. Then he set his glass down and turned toward her. I've been waiting for something to make all of this feel like more than just noise, he said, and then you showed up trying to reach a coat. She smiled faintly. I still think about that. How ridiculous I must have looked. I thought you looked determined, like you weren't going to stop until you got what you came for. She looked down at her hands. I didn't think you'd call. I didn't plan to, he admitted. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't want to ruin it. She looked at him then, surprised. Ruin what? The feeling that something real could happen. The fire crackled behind them, the only sound in the room as something shifted between them, something quiet but undeniable. Then her phone rang. She pulled it from her bag. Her brother's name flashed across the screen. Isaac rose instantly. "Take it, I'll give you a minute," she stood and answered, stepping toward the windows. "Hey," she said gently, "are you all right?" There was a pause on the other end and then a shaky breath. "They said I can start the program next week, but it's out of town." Her spine straightened. "Where?" "Upstate. It's a 6-week program. They said I could bring my art supplies." Her heart twisted. "That's good, that's really good." "I don't want to screw this up, Willa." "You won't," she said. "You're going to do this. I'm proud of you." When she hung up, she turned and found Isaac standing near the fireplace, his hands in his pockets, watching her. "That was him," she said. He nodded once, waiting. He got in. "The program." "I didn't even know he had followed through." "I may have called in a reminder," Isaac said, "but it was his decision." She stepped closer, the phone still warm in her hand. "You didn't tell me. I didn't want you to feel like I was fixing things again." "This isn't fixing," she said. "This is helping, and I think I finally know the difference." He didn't move as she closed the distance between them. "I used to think I was fine on my own," she said, "but then you looked at me like I was worth holding on to. And now I don't want to go back to pretending I don't need anyone." Isaac reached for her hand, slowly, carefully. "I don't want to be someone you learn to live without." "You won't be," she said. Then, finally, she leaned in. Their lips met gently, like a promise sealed in silence. No rush, no chaos, just the kind of kiss that made the rest of the world fall away. When they parted, Isaac touched her cheek and smiled, not with charm or confidence, but with something quieter, something certain. "Stay," he said. "Just tonight?" she asked. "No," he said. "For all the nights after?" She rested her forehead against his. "I think I already was." Weeks passed. Her brother settled into the program, sending her small sketches of pine trees and snow-covered porches. She framed one and hung it in her apartment, even though she spent most nights at the penthouse now, brushing her teeth beside Isaac, stealing his sweaters, learning how to cook in a kitchen the size of her entire living room. One evening, he walked in holding a folder. "What's that?" she asked, curled on the sofa with a book. He handed it to her without a word. Inside was Elise, her name, a storefront. She looked up, speechless. "You said you've always wanted to open your own place, a bookshop/cafe, right?" She swallowed. "Isaac, this is a start," he said, "but only if you want it. No pressure, no strings, just the shelf you deserve, finally within reach." She stood and crossed the room, the folder still in her hands. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," he said, "but I wanted to. Because you changed everything. You reminded me what it feels like to want something for the right reasons." She set the folder down and pulled him into a kiss that tasted like gratitude, like love, like something that had been waiting for the right moment to begin. And this time, she didn't feel like she was borrowing someone else's life. This time, it was hers. All of it. Willa stood in the center of the empty shop, the scent of fresh paint still clinging to the air, hands streaked with streaks of navy and gold. The windows were wide open, letting in the sound of the street outside, bikes rolling past, someone laughing down the block, the faint clink of cutlery from the cafe next door. She took a slow, full breath and closed her eyes. "Don't tell me you're crying," Isaac's voice called from behind her. "Not crying," she said, turning with a grin, "but if I was, it would be completely reasonable." He walked in carrying 2 stools, both still wrapped in soft brown paper. "You know you hired a team to do all this for you, right?" "I know," she said, "but I still wanted to get paint on my fingers." "Makes it feel real." He set the stools down, peeled the paper off, then looked around with quiet satisfaction. "It's going to be beautiful." "It is beautiful," she corrected, stepping toward him, "and it's mine." He looked at her like that meant more than she was even saying. "You earned it." She reached up, brushing a fleck of paint off his cheek. "You know what I've been thinking about? If it's about adding a mystery section, I already said I'd build you another shelf." "No," she said, laughing, "something you said. About how you used to drive for hours just to feel like you were going somewhere." He tilted his head. "Yeah, I don't think you were looking for direction back then," she said. "I think you were looking for a reason to stop." His expression shifted, something in his chest folding inwards. "And now," she reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. Now you don't need to go anywhere." They stood like that for a moment, surrounded by shelves still waiting to be filled, the faint sound of a hammer tapping in the back room where the final light fixture was being installed. Then Isaac said, "There's something I want to do before this place opens." She narrowed her eyes. "If you say install a champagne bar, I'm going to throw this paintbrush at you," he laughed. "No, but I'm going to need you to come with me." She looked down at her paint-splattered jeans. "I'm not exactly dressed for anything dramatic." "Perfect," he said. "Don't change." The drive was short but familiar. She didn't realize where they were going until they pulled up in front of her old building. Rosewood Apartments, the awning still tilted, the paint even more chipped now. "What are we doing here?" she asked, frowning. "I bought it," he said. She blinked. "You what?" "Not for me, for you. For the people who live here. The landlord was impossible and the building's falling apart. So I bought it, hired a new management company, and scheduled repairs next month." She stared at him, stunned. "Why?" "Because I remember you standing on those steps, telling me about your neighbor's midnight drumming and your leaky faucet. And I remember thinking, she deserves better." Willa's throat tightened. "You didn't have to do that." "I didn't do it for you," he said. "I did it because you taught me that helping doesn't always mean fixing. Sometimes it just means doing what you can where you are." She walked toward the steps, her hand brushing the railing she used to grip every night coming home late. "They're going to be okay now," she said. "They were always okay," he said. "But now they'll get to breathe." She turned back to him. "What do we do now?" Isaac moved closer, his voice soft. "Whatever you want, move in with me, stay in your apartment, run your store, travel. I just want to be where you are." She walked to him, wrapped her arms around his waist and rested her head against his chest. "Then stay with me," she said. "Everywhere." Weeks later, the store opened. The front door had a brass bell, and the shelves were lined with hardcovers and paperbacks, all organized with handwritten tags and small notes tucked into the corners. The cafe counter served lavender tea and oat milk lattes, and the back corner had a cozy reading nook with mismatched armchairs Willa had picked up from estate sales. On the first day, Isaac arrived after closing, carrying a small wrapped box. Willa raised an eyebrow. "Another gift," she teased. "This one's different." She opened it carefully, peeling back the tissue to reveal a single vintage key on a ribbon. She looked up. "I had a locksmith recreate the one from your mother's shop," he said. "I figured your place should have a key like that. Something that says it belongs to you." She held it in her hand, the weight of it grounding her more than she expected. "You made this." "I had it made," he said. "But I picked the ribbon." She laughed, then wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him, slow and soft. That night they stood in the window of the store, lights dimmed, the reflection of the city twinkling against the glass. Willa leaned against Isaac's side, their hands linked. She didn't have to worry anymore, not about how she'd pay next month's rent, not about whether she was enough. Not about whether love was something that only happened to other people. Because somehow in the quiet between two lives she'd found him, or maybe he'd found her, and neither one of them had let go. A year later, the store was thriving. Her brother was sober, working in a local community center teaching kids how to sketch. Rosewood Apartments had become a small miracle on the block, with new flower boxes and a repaired roof. And Isaac stood beside her every morning, helping grind beans and restock books, even when he had meetings in Dubai or calls with investors lined up for the afternoon. They didn't need a wedding to prove anything, but they had one anyway. In the garden behind the store, under string lights and with the scent of lemon trees in the air, Willa walked barefoot down the aisle. Isaac waited for her in a navy suit, no tie, holding the same look he'd had that first night when he saw her in a boutique and never looked away. Their vows were simple, no promises of perfection, just presence. Partnership, patience, and love, the kind that didn't need fixing, only a place to belong, and they'd found it in each other.